Today, I'm going to take a deeper dive into 5 Parsecs From Home, roll up my own crew, and you're going to see my dice do something they haven't done in over a quarter century of tabletop gaming. Hey there, Philip here from Manning the Fort, and if you've been watching my videos recently, you'll know that I've taken an increased interest in solo games of late. One of those is 5 Parsecs From Home, written by Ivan Sorensen and produced by Modiphius. 5 Parsecs From Home is a sci-fi game, as the art would suggest, but it's very different from a lot of other role-playing and miniature games in that everything that happens up until actually fighting the battle is determined by rolling on random tables, and that includes what your crew looks like. The universe of 5 Parsecs From Home is unapologetically sci-fi. It's going to have a lot of familiar tropes to people who are familiar with the genre. There are definitely some strong streaks of things like Firefly, and a little bit of things that you would recognize from Star Wars and that sort of thing thrown in as well. The very first thing you'll need to do in order to play 5 Parsecs From Home is create your crew. As you can see, it starts off from the very beginning with random tables, even down to what species your crew members are going to be. Now, the majority of them will likely end up human, given as a 1 to 60 result on a D100 results in a baseline human. But that also means that there's a fair bit of room to get some really interesting results, and boy did I when I was making this crew. On that note, you will need more than just your basic D6s to play 5 Parsecs. Namely, you'll need some D10s because there are a lot of percentile rolls that happen in this game at various points. If you've never rolled percentile dice, it's taking two 10-sided dice, treating one as the 10s and one as the 1s, giving you a result between 1 and 100. While the crew I ended up rolling through this process wasn't necessarily what I might have picked on my own, it ended up coming together in a really satisfying way through the process. Of my 6 crew members, 3 are human, which is, a little less than average, but among 6 characters you're going to have a deviation one way or the other. I did also roll a bot, which I was really excited about because, I have some fun robot models, and if we're going to play a sci-fi game, there should be robots. I also rolled a member of a race called the Hakshan, which are highly technologically advanced aliens seeking truth within the galaxy. As a 40K player, that sounds vaguely familiar, and I already think I know what model I'm going to use. I also rolled something called a Kirin. I hope it's a pun on Karen, actually, because they are a pretty warlike race of people. They're kind of like this galaxy's version of Klingons. Now, I think when you roll, you're supposed to start with the species and then roll through every single thing for each character, but I preferred to get all of my character types, and then I would go through and roll all of their backgrounds, all of their motivations, and all of their classes. Each of those categories is kind of what it sounds like. A character's background is where they grew up, where they're from. Their motivation is what takes them into the stars. And their class is whatever it is they were doing before they ended up on this particular spaceship. Each of these options also gives you some bonuses that can apply during the game. A lot of them can give you extra money, like if your character grew up with a rich family, or if your character was part of a band of wasteland nomads, they'll get extra reactions, which means they're more likely to go first in a given round of combat. Or if, like what happened with my first character, you roll Escape as a motivation and Scoundrel as a class, you get 2 bonus inches to your movement permanently. Your background, motivation, and class can also affect actual gear that you start the game with. You can get extra weapons, extra gadgets, and extra pieces of protective gear or utility items. There's also a possibility of gaining patrons and rivals. Those come into play once you actually get into campaign play, and I'll be getting into those in a later video. After you've determined everyone's background, motivation, and class, it's time to roll up that gear. Normally you'd get 3 rolls on the military weapons chart, but I had a couple of things that gave me rolls on the high-tech weapons chart. One of them is my Hakshan, being from an alien culture, which, yes, I rolled randomly, gets 1 high-tech weapon. Also, any character that gets a bonus to their savvy, which is kind of their technical know-how during character creation, lets you move one of your rolls from the military weapons to the high-tech weapons. Now, if you noticed, that first roll was a 0 and a 00. If you're unfamiliar, on percentile dice, that is 100. I consult the high-tech weapon chart, and it's a glare sword. A glare sword in 5 parsecs is kind of the equivalent of a power sword in Warhammer 40k. That's another 100. Okay. That's never happened to me before. All right, I guess another glare sword it is. One more roll. Oh, you've got to be kidding me. 3 100s in a row. I'm terrible at statistics, but the odds of that happening 3 times in a row have to be absolutely astronomical. At any rate, I decided 3 glare swords was probably a little excessive, so I decided to go ahead and roll on the military chart instead, and got an infantry laser because I am going to need some ranged weapons at some point, no matter how good glare swords are, and they are pretty sweet. The rest of my weaponry wasn't anything terribly special. I got that infantry laser, like I said, as well as a needle rifle, a handful of pistols, and a blade. Just a regular blade. For gear and gadgets, I got a beam light, which helps a character see further in low light situations as they attach it to their rifle, a battle visor that helps them hit better in combat, and a screen generator that helps protect them. If you played old school 40k, it's not unlike the refractor fields from that. I also rolled up my credits, added the amount I get for starting, and ended up with 11, which isn't bad. Then you roll for your ship. Spacefaring adventurers are nothing without a ship, so you get one of those as well, but you don't own it outright. When the game begins, you owe money on that ship. The amount of money you own is based on, you guessed it, a random chart. That random chart is also going to determine how durable that ship is and if it comes with any upgrades to start with. As you might imagine, the better the ship, the more likely you are to owe money on it. If you get a cheaper ship to start off with, then, you might have to be pretty careful, but over time, you can spend money to upgrade it after you've paid it off. And interest on what you owe on that ship accrues every campaign turn. And if you get too far behind in your payments, just like in the real world, somebody will come and take it away from you. Finally, there are options for some flavor. Now, you could absolutely do this on your own, but I decided I was really kind of feeling the whole randomness thing, so rolled up some origin story for the group as a whole. Turns out, the group met through the pursuit of one of its members' motivation, and they are best characterized as defenders of the downtrodden. Now, I did roll randomly for which character's motivation that the group got together pursuing, and it was revenge, so that could be fun. From here, I would go on to actually start playing the campaign, and I'll probably be doing that here in the near future, but I don't quite have all the miniatures together that I'd want. But I do have some. Now, one thing it could be really handy to own if you want an easy solution to a lot of the characters that you're going to roll up randomly, it's Blackstone Fortress. I own a couple copies of the miniatures to this, and I was immediately like, oh, I could use that, and I could use that, and I could use that. So if you happen to have a copy or can get a hold of the minis fairly inexpensively, that's not a bad way to go about it. But in all honesty, any sort of Imperial Guard or Star Wars models, anything else you have from a sci-fi looking game will look the part, at least until you get a hold of something that you really want if you just need that special bespoke model. Now, I should mention that I have made a certain purchase recently that's going to mean I have a lot of bespoke models in the future, but we'll get to that in later videos, and if you want to see a grown man struggle to the point of probably tears with a 3D printer, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Now, I had already been fairly excited about just the idea of 5 Parsecs From Home, but I gotta say, actually sitting down, rolling the dice, and randomly determining what my crew was going to be was a lot of fun. Like I said, I've got a substantial miniature collection, but I didn't know which of them I was going to be able to use. All in all, rolling on all those charts probably took about 45 minutes, which seems like a long time unless you've ever rolled up a D&D character ever. Now, 5 Parsecs is played on square boards, either 2 foot by 2 foot, 30 inches by 30 inches, or 3 foot by 3 foot, depending on various things. But a lot of the games I've seen people play online are either they're on 2 foot by 2 foot or 30 by 30 boards. I don't have a 30 by 30 board, but what I do have a fair number of is Kill Team boards, which are 22 by 30, so I figure pair a couple of those up and, mark off most of one of them. Now, in the coming weeks, I'm going to be converting and painting up my 5 Parsecs crew and hopefully actually getting to play some games. If you're interested in seeing that, subscribe to the channel, and if you found this video enjoyable or informative, I'd appreciate it if you gave it a like. We are getting close to 2,500 subscribers, and the channel is just a little under 9 months old. I'm absolutely blown away. I love that you guys enjoy watching these videos. If you are interested in learning more about solo games in general, you can take a look at that video that I did just a couple weeks ago, giving an overview of quite a few games that have solo rules for those times when you don't have someone else to play with. Until next time, keep flying, and thanks for watching.